Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today, I get to hang out with fellow Australian homeopath, Sarah Kottman. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I always love chatting with Sarah. So I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast. I know I haven't said it to you, but Sarah has been my takeaway name for 25 years. Yeah. So because Eugenie is such a tricky name, just like 25 years ago, I just started if I'm ordering a coffee or a pizza, whatever, and they ask who it's for, it's just Sarah. And my kids, like when they were little, they were like, "Mummy, who's Sarah?" But now they all know if it's Sarah, if I'm ordering something, it's for Sarah. And apparently it means princess, right?
It does, yes.
Yeah, and the reason I know is when we had just had this conference in Bali, I had a Sarah sitting on each side of me, and I was saying to them, "It's so funny. I had a Sarah on each side of me, and Sarah is my takeaway name. So there's all these Sarahs sitting here." And I said, "What does it mean?" And they said, "Princess." So there you go.
There you go.
Now, the other cool thing is that we got to meet in person in November at the AHA conference, which you organized, which having just come back from the Bali conference that I've organized, huge kudos to you because it is a lot of work.
Thank you. And look, I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one in the
I wasn't the
organization.
I
There was a
wasn't the only
team
one
of
either.
us.
Yep, yep.
But yes, lots of work goes into those conferences. But it was a lot of fun. It was a
And
lot of fun
And
organizing.
how amazing getting to like when you then get to meet somebody in person and then see them online afterwards. It's just such a different
Yeah.
experience, hey, because we've met each other and we've got to have a couple of chats there and you have got lots of other feathers in your bow or whatever in your hat or what's the quivers in your
Yes.
what's the
Yes.
saying? Feathers in your hat, and you do breath work and you do Reiki and sound healing and homeopathy. And I see you've won some awards for like counseling type things as well?
So I've won awards in trauma release. So basically, I use those modalities as well as craniosacral therapy to support people in that trauma release and emotional release from the physical body. So we store a lot, and I just help people to get rid of all of that that's stored in their body that's sitting there.
Wow. And we were just chatting before we started recording that there's so many, like you have so many modalities under your belt already, but there's so many you said you started family constellations. I would love to do family constellations as well. And they all just help you in your clinical practice. Hey.
They do, absolutely. Yeah.
And this is also the problem when I interview somebody that I've met in person. I just want to like chat about everything else other than what we the job at hand. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit here. And I'm going to ask you what I always ask my guests is how did you first discover homeopathy?
So I have actually been treated with homeopathy my whole entire life. So when I was a baby, I was born with, I almost died in birth. And through that, I ended up with eczema and asthma and all these different things. And I was constantly being brought to the hospital. I was always on antibiotics. And there was a point where my mum was like, that's it. There has to be something better out there than this continual antibiotic rotation. So she went and looked at homeopathy as an option, as well as using like your probiotics. And in Germany at the time, because I'm German originally, so in Germany at the time, they already had specialized probiotics that they were using dependent on what you were missing in your gut. So they very specifically chose the strains that you needed. So that was sort of compounded. And then she used the homeopathy as well. And from that, eczema, asthma completely gone. So from that moment, all she ever used was homeopathy. And when we moved to Australia, we were always brought to either a homeopath or a naturopath or someone like that to help us with our sort of ailments. And then when I was going through, I'd finished school and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And there was a friend doing a naturopathy course. And I was like, oh, I can actually do that. That's like, I just didn't, it wasn't something I thought I could have as a career. So I started my course in naturopathy. And then we did in that naturopathy course a year of homeopathy, just that sort of beginning stage.
Mm.
And it was at that moment I was like, nah, this is it. This is my passion. This is absolutely what I want to do. So I changed all my courses over to homeopathy and I've completed my Western herbal medicine as well because I wanted to finish that just in case, just as a backup as well. And then, yeah, since then, I've been now 13 years in private practice. And as you mentioned, I do more than just homeopathy. I've added things over the years like craniosacral therapy. I use naturopathic approaches as well, energy healing. and yeah, specializing in trauma at the moment.
That's very cool. And
Yeah.
what age were you when you came over to Australia?
2.
Oh, you're
So
only 2 years
pretty
old.
young. Pretty
Oh,
young.
and who was your family homeopath growing up? Because there wouldn't have been too many homeopaths.
No, so Sydney was where we originally lived. I couldn't remember her name, but it was like you would go to a house and you were part of
Oh,
the family almost. It was like this whole different experience than we have these days. But yeah, it was like you go to a house and we'd meet their son and you just know everyone and it was like kind of like a family feel to the whole experience.
that's really cool.
Hmm.
And you have also been part of the AHA, the Australian Homeopathic Association. I saw on your website that you were the Australian representative on the International Council. Can you say a little bit about that? That sounds really cool.
I was, yes. So there used to be an international count. I don't know if it's still operating, but yes, there was an international council at one stage in Australia there was a representative. And at one point I was that representative for Australia. And then that kind of dissolved a little bit. I don't know what happened to the actual, unfortunately, it didn't have all the magic that it was hoping for. But yeah, it was an interesting experience talking to different countries, mostly Europe. It was mostly based in the Europe countries and what their hopes were and dreams were for homeopathy. Yeah, and then yes, I've been part of the AHA. I've been their secretary at one point. I've sort of worked in and out with the AHA, different aspects, and now obviously part of the conference team.
Wow. It actually
Yeah,
sounds like a great idea to have an international association like that because we can learn a lot from each other. And there's, certain ways that people do things, and you think, oh, I didn't think of doing that. Maybe we can incorporate that in our country, or just learning from other countries on how they, get around things and how they work with a medical professional, what sort of, insurances or things they
absolutely.
have. And yeah, it sounds like a great
Mm,
idea. Now, the reason I wanted to get you on the podcast today is to talk about some provings that you've been doing. So maybe just kind of talk us through how you first got involved with provings. And it sounds like you have a special affinity for provings made from meteorites. So to talk to us
correct.
about that progression.
Yeah, so I think it was like 2020 or maybe 2019 even. At the time, we had a crystal shop as part of the clinic. So we had a little shop going and we had lots of crystals. And so I headed down to the crystal shop to, purchase. I like to go on my own and really feel into them and feel into which ones we needed. And while I was there, I saw this sign saying Moldavite. And I thought, oh, what's Moldavite? And so I read a little bit about what it was, and it talked about being a meteorite. And I thought, oh, wow, meteorite. That's really cool. And then they had this tiny, tiny little piece because Moldavite, I didn't realize at the
Very
time, it's actually really
expensive.
expensive.
Yeah.
So they had this tiny, tiny piece that you could buy for like $20 or something. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to get that. It feels really nice. Like there's something about this that just feels really good. I'm going to grab that. And then I got sort of and I work very much with getting downloads. So from my guides and everything. So I got this download on, you have to do a proving on this. And I'm like, okay, I've never done a proving before. How do I do a proving? I mean, we did it at college, but it was done for you. You just got the remedy and you try it and you were either a support person or you took it. So I was like, okay, is there already a proving? And so I had a little look and there was one that was done, but it was like, it wasn't written up as a proving. It was just a few little aspects of the proving. And then later on, after I did the proving, I found one meditative proving version of it as well. But yes, so basically, I decided to contact the gem person, Peter Tominello, because I thought he would be the best person to contact.
Absolutely.
And he was like, yep, let's meet, let's have a chat. And he sort of talked me through how to do it. And he's like, I'll be your support person and we can do this together. And this is how we're going to do it. So he actually had the remedy and he sent us the remedy. And I got a whole bunch of people together. They didn't know what they were taking. It was just me and Peter that knew. And so that first proving was done June 2020. And it was amazing. The most incredible proving. I loved doing Moldavite. It was just, and everyone who did the proving was like, oh, let's do another one. I want to do another one. This is so amazing. And so since then, we've done 6 other provings, mostly with the same people. They never know what they're going to get, but they know it's probably in the meteorite space because all of them have been meteorites. Because what ended up happening was I started finding all these other meteorites. Shungite being one, which there's a question mark on whether that is a meteorite or not, but let's just call it a meteorite. And then Agni Manatite. And then someone said, oh, there's a meteorite in Gympie up here in Queensland. I'm like, oh, okay, which is algenonite. And I thought, oh, okay, well, we have to do that one. We have to do an Australian one. So since then, we've just been doing all these provings. So it's 6 at the moment, but I've only written up 3 because it does take some time to sit and write them up. I usually take a weekend and go away somewhere and just sit with it. And generally I'm proving the remedy again as I'm writing it up.
I think it was, did Jeremy Sure say it took him about 10 years to write Kryptonite, or like one of those? I know like sometimes it can take
Yeah,
years to really write those up. Because I think there's some other Shungite provings as well.
there is
Yeah.
now. Yes, yes. So at the time when I did the Shungite one, which I think was 2020 as well, it might have been 2021. When we did the Shungite one, there wasn't any at that time. There was none that I knew about anyways. I looked up, I did some research, and I couldn't find any. And then it must have been within a similar year that everyone did the Shungite proving, which is really interesting.
Okay.
Because then after I'd done it and I'd posted a little bit about that, I'd done the Shungite proving, and these were some of the themes that came up. Other people contacted me going, oh, we've also done a Shungite proving. We'd love to connect. And since then I get emails about, oh, we've done a Shungite proving, and be amazing to like put all of that together and get a really good understanding of Shungite. And then it's just recently, I think like a couple of weeks ago, that I bought Colin Griffin's new book. And in there is a Shungite proving,
Yeah,
and they
I've got
did it
his
in
book.
2017. So yes.
Yeah, I've got his new, the Materia Medica 3. Hey.
Yes, number
Yeah, I've
3.
got
Yeah,
that one as well.
exactly.
Yeah. That's amazing. But it makes sense, right? Like, I think the substances reveal themselves when they need to be proven. And so it
Absolutely.
does make sense that it all kind of, as we get exposed to more Wi-Fi and things, I know Shungite is really good for EMF exposure, from my understanding.
It is
But
as a crystal. Yeah, yeah.
can you maybe tell us like the overarching theme of the meteorites? Has there been like a common thread that you've noticed with the meteorites?
Yeah, so just in a sort of generalized, so the things that were from the 3 that I've written up, the other ones, because they haven't been put together yet, I haven't looked at the themes yet there. But what comes through quite a lot is water themes. So either dreams of water, being thirsty, dryness of mouth, thirstlessness, or fear of water. Like there's always seems to be some kind of water element that comes into every single meteorite proving that we've done. Often we find a lot of the things that come through dreams. That's been quite a big theme of all of them. It's all come through a lot of dreams. And then grief is a big one as well. Grief and loss comes through quite often. Drug addiction is a big one. That seems to come through a couple of them, the Moldavite one. Although it didn't come through the Shungite proving, I've since used it on someone and they've had a massive effect on drug use. So that's been quite amazing. Healing deep wounds and deep trauma seems to be a big aspect, as well as like better focus. There's a lot to do with the mind, focus, self-worth, all of that kind of stuff. And a deeper connection with self seems to be a theme within that as well. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Have you had much of a chance to use it in clinic? Has anyone else in the group used it?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else in the group has. I certainly have used Moldavite quite a lot. I use it as a very intercurrent remedy. I haven't used it as its solid own remedy, but definitely as an intercurrent remedy just to bring up trauma that hasn't been spoken about, things that like abuse and that kind of thing, like things that haven't really been come to the surface or the person hasn't fully been able to heal. It tends to bring that up ready to be healed, not in a traumatic way, but more in yeah, I'm ready to deal with this now. A lot of the times when there's issues around trust and speaking your truth and all of that kind of thing, I've used Moldavite to just help clear the picture. I've only recently used Shungite. I tried using it for chronic fatigue because it felt like it came through would be good for chronic fatigue. I did try and use it, but didn't have any success there in that sense. But since then, I've used it for people more that have chaotic life, like suddenly their world's in chaos, things are spiraling out of control. And they do talk like that. They're like, oh, I feel like I'm spinning, like I'm spiraling. And when that kind of comes through, I'm like, oh, could shungite be a good match? Then there's usually that not feeling grounded and lots of stress and not feeling stable. So I've given it to two people over the last actually month, and it's had a really beautiful effect on, getting them focused, getting them grounded, helping them get through whatever chaotic moment in life that they currently are going through.
Mm. And if it was Peter Tamanello inspiring or kind of supporting you in doing it, I'm guessing it was just an immersion and not a trituration.
It was correct, yeah. So the first one, the Moldavite, was an immersion. The Shungite, I'm not sure because it was from Helios. And I've asked them like what, because Shungite comes in different carbon levels.
I was going to ask you that because I've got a local crystal shop here that I go to as well. And the crystal shop owner told me that depending on the carbon level, it will look a certain, depth
Correct.
of that blackness. And he did say the ones with a higher carbon is more expensive and it does look a bit different. And
Yes.
all that sort of,
Yes.
and it has more of that protective, like an EMF protective quality because of the carbon. So it's interesting you say that.
Correct. And yeah, so they call it noble shungite when it's
Uh-huh.
like it's really high, and that you can use in water to purify it as well.
Ah, because of the carbon. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so which is really cool. So yeah, and I'm hoping that's what it was made from, but Helios couldn't tell me. They're like, we don't know the source. We don't know who ended up, like, obviously they don't have records of who's created it at some point. So yeah, unfortunately they didn't know the source of that. So I know since then there's been an immersion done. So whether this was a trituration
Mm.
and they've now got an immersion version, I don't know. That part, unfortunately, I'm not quite sure whether it was, immersion or not. But the other ones, all the other provings were immersions, and I had to make most of the other ones because they don't exist. So that was another conversation with Peter on how do I make a remedy?
Well, any excuse to have a chat with him. He's such a great guy. And it
Yes,
was wonderful to
absolutely.
get to meet him at the conference as well. That was really cool. He's
Yes,
really, really
yeah.
lovely. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Shungite proving and maybe how people might use it in clinic?
Yeah, so basically in clinic use, I think definitely drug addiction, very, very good. Like I mentioned, I did have a client, not that I gave it to her for that, because like I said, it didn't come up in the proving, and I haven't seen it come up in any other provings that I've read so far. But she had a massive effect. I mean, completely stopped within a couple of days of taking the remedy. So I was thought, this is amazing. I'd love to use this a bit more and see if it's relevant. And then, yes, that real instability, that a chaotic world is chaos, spiraling out of control, the need for grounding. Like if you feel really ungrounded, feel really, you know, airy fairy, I guess, up in your up in your head, and need that stability and that grounding. Stress, for real times of stress where you feel unstable, don't feel connected with self perhaps, or with the world around you, or you're pushing your energy too far that it exhausts you. So that's where I thought maybe the chronic fatigue, but maybe it's just pushing yourself too far to exhaustion, because there was that real energy versus no energy in the proving.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
It's interesting the timing of your remedies as well, with the Moldavite being June 2020, and then the
I
others kind
know.
of like sound like they were during the COVID era as well. So
Yes.
it
Yes.
does, yeah, that is very interesting that they were called into existence during that time.
Absolutely. And we all had a very healing effect from Shungite. Like, I
Mm,
think we were all very ungrounded because what came through most was that grounding, that clarity, that feel like we all had a healed effect almost
mm,
of the remedy. And I think it was right in the middle of that, COVID time. And I think that's what was really needed at the time. Yeah.
a while ago, maybe a year or so ago, I was using Shungite a bit to kind of because that's where I first heard about it, and I was using it for EMF, like clients who are really sensitive to EMF.
Yep.
And yeah, it seemed to have had a really great result. I don't think I'm somebody that's normally very sensitive to kind of outside influences, but more recently I've come to realize I just wasn't aware of it, that I am probably a little bit more sensitive to it. But I would give it to clients of mine who are really sensitive to EMFs. They get headaches from driving past a 5G tower, or from, they can't be anywhere near EMFs, and their
Mm.
house is hardwired. They don't use Wi-Fi, and cell phones, make their hand feel really hot, or
Yeah,
make their
right.
head feel really hot, ear really hot. And I was playing around with some shungite then, and I had some good results. But I don't know if you have this, but I go through phases with my remedies. So I one lot, like everyone gets shungite. Like I can
Yes.
tell at what phase a client came to see me based on, like, like the thing that I was in at that time. So there was a shungite theme at one stage. It was actually during COVID. But I do think I always just feel like the clients who need the remedy phase that I'm in at that moment, they come and see me during that time. And sometimes I don't hear from them for a little while. And then they come back when I'm in the right phase of what they need from me.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, I had a phase like that last week with sepia. I was like, okay, I'm going to take sepia myself because
That's what
clearly I need a dose.
I always feel that, like, you prescribe all this stuff and you're like, oh, maybe I need a dose of like lacanine or
Yeah.
whatever. Everyone's had
Yes.
that this week. It's funny. So no too many detrimental things that came out of the proving, because that's honestly after the cassowary proving that we did recently, I'm a little bit scared to do another proving
Oh,
because
really? Yeah, no, the
yeah.
meteorites have been so gentle. Like, oh, there was one meteorite where we all just didn't like it. I think we were all like, nah. There was probably a few people in that went, I'm never doing a proving again. But otherwise, the meteorites have been really beautiful. It's been actually a really wonderful experience, if not healing each time rather than detrimental. But
Mm.
definitely there was the Campo del Cielo, which is also a proving I have, one of the provings I've written up. That one was one that no one liked. It was very different to all the other ones. And I know why now when we go through, is it what structure it is, what structure each one. That one has a different structure to the other
It's sort of like
meteorites.
amorphous or something like
Yeah,
that. Because
like
I know,
those
yeah,
ones,
yeah.
exactly, cubic. And yeah,
Yeah.
so it has a very different structure. I'm like, oh, that makes sense why that one was super intense.
Peter Tamanello has that book. Is it Substance and Structure or something
Yes,
like that? The
correct.
structure
Yeah.
of
I
crystals.
just
I've got that.
recently bought that, which is why I'm like, oh, that makes sense why that is different to that one.
After I interviewed him, I literally, when I pressed stop on the recording, I said to him, "Here's my credit card details. Send me all your books." So I have got that one there. It's sitting on my shelf. I haven't read it yet, but I was like, just send them all to me.
Them all.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
good.
Yeah, so that one was definitely pretty full on and very good though for people with ADHD, I
Mhm.
reckon, because it was really, yeah, it was like our minds were scattered. We couldn't write or read properly. We were like just completely out of
What
it.
what is that one made from?
That's a meteorite as well. So Campo del Cielo.
Was it like found in South America somewhere?
Yes, correct. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think that one
It
is, I
sounds
can't
like
remember from
sounds like
memory, but somewhere in there.
it's not a Latin name, so that's why I thought.
No, no,
Yeah.
it's either, I know a lot of them, I think Argentina might be the Moldavite one,
Okay.
but yeah, or it might be that one, but definitely, yeah, it's got that name because of the name where it was found. So it's the
Okay.
same name as where it was found.
That sounds right. After the cassowary proving, Sarah Valentini, who did the proving as well, we did it at the same time on two. She did hers in Melbourne, we did ours in Perth at the same time, intentionally, which was cool because the cassowary's got the split feather. So it was quite nice that we did two provings at the same time. But she broke her foot at the proving, like on the way to carrying
Oh,
down the chair for them to start the proving. Then one of our provers was in a car accident on the way home. The
oh
next day,
goodness.
me and Amy were almost in a car accident, and her husband witnessed a car accident. And so we were just like, okay, can this just all please stop because it's getting too freaky? But here's something else really freaky. When we were in Bali last week at the conference, we were in a little bus going to go quad biking. So myself and Hilary Dorian, I'm name dropping now, and and Anetza Appeline. And as we're on the bus, we're driving to the quad biking. We're just chatting about some remedies that would be interesting to prove. And Hilary said about proving the sand in Auschwitz. And
Oh,
as we talked about that, there was an earthquake in Bali.
wow.
So part of me is like, okay, we have to do this remedy, but all of us are so scared.
I was
Like,
gonna
I'm
say
so
no thanks.
scared. No, I know I'm gonna need some like volunteers to do that one. But then I figured maybe if we triturate it like through all the levels, and maybe once you actually
Mm.
take the remedy and prove it, hopefully then we'll all be okay. But there are stories, hey, of homeopaths like having head injuries and accidents and all sorts of things when they do provings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've
Yeah.
heard some stories, or they, leave their partners, or they,
Yeah.
like big life events happen.
And you find homeopaths who do regular provings. I've had people on the podcast, and I'm trying to think of who it was that I've had, but their partner was saying to them, please just no more provings because, the people around you do get affected by it as
They
well,
do.
right? They do.
They
And
do.
they can sometimes have proving symptoms.
Oh, absolutely. I think my husband had that at one stage of one of the provings. I'm like, I'm just going to note down your symptoms too, because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you're proving this remedy. And then there was Moldavite one where the inner child came out.
Uh,
And so I bought roller skates I'd never used, because I was like, oh, yeah, I want to go roller skating. So I went and bought roller skates, used them once. And then obviously the proving wore off. And I'm like, I don't actually want to go roller skating.
that's really cute.
Oh.
Oh, so tell us a little bit about the proving notes. So for the ones that you've done, the three that you've written up so far, can people buy the proving notes somewhere?
They can, yes. So they can buy those from my website, northlakeshomeopathy.com.au, and just in the shop section, they can buy them as digital copies, so all individual. And hopefully in the future, there'll be a physical version of all of them together. But yes, maybe by the next conference, it'll be for sale.
Now you've put a date on it,
I
hey? So we're
know.
going to
Put a
hold you
date.
to it.
I have to put a date on myself, otherwise it doesn't move forward.
No, I do the same thing, which is really exciting. I'm, yeah, excited for the next conference already. So that's good. You said 2026. Hey, have you got like a,
2026,
for just
yeah.
for those who want to book their travel, have you got like a month in mind yet?
It'll be around the same month. So I think we've got November, but it's not confirmed yet, but around about October, what are we? Yeah, October, November, it'll be around that
Okay, so just for
time.
those of us with like saving accounts for homeopathic conference
Absolutely.
travel,
Start
that's
saving
start saving.
for 2026.
Amazing. So, Sarah, with all your other therapies that you do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about how you incorporate that into your practice? Like, does somebody book
Absolutely.
for a, craniosacral session or a homeopathic session, or do you kind of start with one and then realize they actually need something else?
No, so I actually combine them. So what happens is they come in and they come in for an initial, for example. Look, sometimes they just come in for homeopathy and a chat. They can decide that now. Prior to that, I was like, no, it's an hour and a half and we'll work out what we need. But now I've sort of changed that just recently. But in most cases, I find the person needs to have like the combined therapies, because there's always an element of things being stuck in the body, or supernatural, I guess, or metaphysical things happening. So they come in, they have a consult. That's the part where I sort of try and figure out the remedy. So we'll have a chat first, we'll go through all of that. And then at some point during the session, depending on how much information they need to tell me, or how much things are going on in their lives, I then get them on the table basically. And from there, often I can feel like the body talks. This is what we do as craniosacral therapists. We listen to the inner physician and we talk to the body. And through that, it's very similar, I guess, to homeopathy, because it's a self-healing. We're just holding space where the body has asked us to hold space. We tune in and we talk to the body, and we shift and move energy. And by doing so, it helps that self-healing and the release of emotions, if there's emotions in there. And that component's called somatic emotional release, which is a part of craniosacral. And sometimes we do dialogue, because we will use the Jungian psychology method, and we do some dialogue sometimes if there's something that's really trapped. So a lot of things happen on the table. Maybe there's emotional release, and I can often feel into exactly what's happening for that person, stuff that people don't talk about and hide and is deep within. I can always feel it on the table. So that's where I sometimes change my remedy choice,
Mm,
because I'll go, oh, hey, actually, I'm feeling a lot of grief in your body. I'm feeling a lot of sadness. Can you tell me about that?
mm,
And then all of a sudden will come out something completely different. And I'll be like, okay, well, we're changing the remedy. Or sometimes the body tells me what remedy they need. And then I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, it actually matches beautifully with what they told me. So, yeah, often I will go with remedy choices that have come through during the table session, which is why I really love doing the combination together. They get a lot from the releases on the table, and then they continue the work at home with the homeopathic, is how I see it. Like the work continues at home with the homeopathic remedy. So, yeah, I really
Wow.
love combining them. And then obviously I bring in, your gut healing if there's gut healing needed through that naturopathic approach, or the many other things that we have in that space, diet changes, or, whatever's needed really. I just love being able to have all the multiple aspects, because then I can,
Awesome.
you know, treat people individually
And they
in
can get some
there.
breath work and Reiki and sound healing while they're on the
Yes, well,
table as
Reiki
well.
always happens as
Yeah.
part of the cranial, like, that's all encompassing, so if
Yeah.
I feel like there's an entity that needs to be removed,
Mm.
or there's, something a bit off with their spiritual aspect or their energy, or there's some chakras that are blocked, I'll be doing all of that while I'm doing all the other stuff.
That sounds
Yeah.
amazing. Amazing. And actually, could we quickly talk about Solomon Islands? Because I was just saying to you before we started recording that one thing with a podcast is you never quite know who's listening and how it's affecting them. But you said that you listened to the episode that we did on the Solomon Islands with Jane Lindsay, and you're heading off there in November.
I am, yes, yes, I was
That's
listening to
so
the
cool.
episode, I thought, "Ooh, I wanna learn more. I wanna know a bit more. Like, what, could I do this?" And it's something, because I've had a child, like I've got a 12-year-old, and obviously they've needed me for so long. I haven't been able to do any of these sorts of things, but now he's 12 and I can go somewhere for a little while and he can be looked after. But yeah, so I thought, oh, yeah, I want to find out more. So I did. I contacted Jane and I found out more, and now I'm heading off and in
Wow.
November
You're going
to.
to have such a good time. Actually, at the Bali conference last week, I met a lovely New Zealand homeopath, Katie Emerson, and she's going to be joining you. I heard that she's going there as well. So,
Yes, yep, she will be joining us, as well as a couple of other homeopaths, and yeah, I'm a bit excited. I don't know what to expect yet. It's all kind of just go with the flow, it feels like, but we've been making
amazing.
remedies. I think it was 2 weeks ago, we were making all the remedies for the kits. Yeah, yeah, it's been really
It's
good so far.
from what
So,
Jane was saying, it's pretty kind of like bare basics. So it's going to be
yes,
really interesting, but also a lovely opportunity to probably going to be learning so much. I would love to go to somewhere like that or to Africa or wherever where people are not overly medicated and you actually really get to see the magic of homeopathy. So one of
absolutely.
the beautiful ladies I've had on the podcast, Samina Khan, she also came to the Bali conference and she spoke there about the work that they're doing in the Gambia project in Africa and how, they can just like heal cancers with one single dose of a remedy
Mm,
because the people are in such an uncompensated, pure state without
wow.
all the suppression. And I think you'll probably see a lot of that in Solomon Islands as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've always wanted to do the Africa, like go to Africa and do that. I think it'd
Yeah,
be really amazing to,
would be
yeah,
amazing.
to experience.
Yeah.
Mm.
So just do you have any final messages for us, Sarah? And also are you still taking on new clients and where can people find you?
Yep, still taking on new clients. I am in North Lakes in Queensland. I do face to face, also on Zoom. And again, they can just jump on my website, northlakeshomeopathy.com.au, and yeah, you can book online or you can contact me, have a chat. Yeah, all of that.
Sounds amazing. It was so lovely to see you, and I'll see you at the next
Yeah,
conference,
you
if not
too.
before then.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Pleasure. Have fun in Solomon Islands.
Thanks. See ya.